Okay. Good morning and welcome to another lovely state mandated meal break. And I hope you guys will indulge me. I'll be drinking a little coffee because, yeah, it's 11 o'clock and I'm still wiped out. But dad pool don't stop. That's what my kids call me. I'm ridiculous sometimes. Anyway, so today's topic is going to be some considerations for building your bug out, and later this evening I will go ahead and I'll film a breakdown of my bug out bag to show you what's in it. And this is to explain, well, and I'll explain some of that as to why. Well, so right now it's just some considerations before you put together a bug out bag, because I've had people ask me, kind of picking my brain about what I got and what would be appropriate for our environment here in, western Montana. So, basically I kind of told them that it doesn't, one bug out bag size does not fit all, right? So it's going to depend on a lot of things. So let's break that down. In no particular order. First things first, try to consider your physical fitness when you're putting together your bug out bag. Think about what you can carry and what you can't, because if you have a 70-pound inch bag or whatever, you're going to be, most people of average fitness are going to be smoked by the time they hit 5 miles. If you're not used to carrying the weight, it's going to make a difference. Joints are going to hurt, feet are going to hurt worse, ankles, back, all that crap, okay? It's just the way it is. So consider your physical fitness when you're putting it together. In the beginning, or if you're not terribly fit, try to keep things as light as possible. That would be one bit of advice. The next thing is skill set. That's the other thing that you can dump weight from your bug out bag by gaining skills. So what I'm meaning by that is the more you know, the less you have to carry. You've heard that old adage. So you can drop out, if you're an extremely skilled bushcrafter, and between you and home or your destination, whatever it is 25 miles of wilderness, you can be skills reliant. You can dump some weight out of your bag and go with primitive shelters or use a bivy bag instead of a tent, things like that. So when the more you know, the less you carry. Okay. The other thing is your area of operation and the season. So would it be appropriate for me to carry a 20 degree sleeping bag and a poncho liner and a survival blanket if it is Arizona in the summertime? No, right? So consider where you are, what season it is, and what the average weather is. Can there be kind of outlying events like what happened in Texas recently? Hell yes, there can. So, your no bug out bag is going to be perfect, but you got to match your general area of operations, seasonal weather, and what your fitness is to blend it all together as to what you should carry and how much it should weigh. Okay? So, for example, here in Montana, I shift my weight around in my bag by the season. So if it's summertime and I live at nearly 6,000 feet, it still can get into the 30s at night. It can get cold. So what would I carry? I would carry a 50 degree sleeping bag, a decent jacket with a little bit of insulation, a waterproof overlayer, and a bivy bag would be enough to get you through almost anything around here in the summertime. As you climb, every 1,000 feet you climb will drop you approximately 5 degrees in average temperature. So consider that. If you're passing through mountains and you've got to go over a pass that you might have to sleep closer to the top, then carry for that elevation and that average. Okay? So that's happened around here. I actually did a trip with some friends that we went to the Wind River Range, and we got just smashed by a snowstorm and got like 18 inches of snow and had to cross over an 11,000 foot pass. So basically we had on everything we could possibly throw on, and we were keeping moving to stay warm. So those kind of things happen, right? You're not in charge, the weather and the mountains are. Okay? So the next thing is your distance from your destination. So for instance, I am approximately 10 miles from my home. And my primary, tertiary, and secondary routes all come in within 13 miles. So there's a possibility if anything's going wrong or I got to move slow or I'm injured or anything like that, there's a possibility of an overnight. So I carry some food and some basic sleeping stuff and a small alcohol stove, things like that. So essentially, if you know that your destination is 20 miles away and you know that your bug out bag weighs 30 pounds, which would be a reasonable weight for a get home quick kind of bag, which is what a bug out bag should be. Okay, you're not just running from danger, you're running to safety. So 30 pounds for an overnight or 48-hour type bag, perfect. But your distance matters. So the more weight you add, the longer it's going to take you to go through any amount of distance. Well, at 10 miles, I might or mightn't wind up sleeping out overnight, depending on the weather. Now, wintertime, if it's cold, snowing, 10 miles, I'm probably going to stop and hunker down somewhere just so that when I show up, I'm not totally smoked, right? You still got to show up able to fight or function or cook or whatever you got to do. So, we have comms in our bag, so my people will know where I am and they will know what to expect and they will know how to react if I don't arrive within a certain time. So, essentially, plan your weight to make it appropriate for you to make a distance from wherever you are to home in a reasonable amount of time. Okay? 10 miles over rough country might or might not wind up overnight for me. Okay? But again, I'm realistic about my fitness level. I'm realistic about the weather and the conditions and how much weight I can carry. So keep that in mind. Your population density and your security level will also help when you're selecting your bug out bag. The bag itself possibly, or how much you're carrying. So for instance, if you're the angry prepper and you're in New York, you don't want to carry some massive tactical looking bag and be dressed up in camouflage because then people see you and pay attention. You want something a little lower level, in my estimation. That's just my opinion. And you're going to want things that are more appropriate to city survival and blending in a city. Okay? Here in Montana, everybody wears camouflage, so it ain't no big deal. So you throw, a camo backpack and a camo coat on, and nobody will notice you. Not here, okay? But let's just say you live in a small town, but your destination's in the country. So dress in your normal everyday clothes until you reach the outskirts of town, have a little bit of camo and stuff like that in your backpack, or get a poncho that you can throw over the top of everything and look like a lump if you're holding still. Something like that would be appropriate. So you don't stand out when you're in town, and you don't stand out when you hit the country, okay? So it's kind of along those lines. You need to be considering your destination and your security level. So by security level, I mean where I'm sitting right now, my pistol and a reload and my go bag are enough to get me home if I had to go any of the 3 routes, okay? But if you are in a city and people are going to be desperate, you might want to carry something more substantial quietly, and you're going to want to blend in as much as you can, because again, the best fight is when you don't get into, because it's a two-way dynamic fight, shooting range. You don't want to do that. So you also don't want people to see a massive camouflage backpack on your pack walking through New York City and they go, "Yay, who's this guy? I wonder what he's got in that bag. It looks pretty full." You know what I mean? So you got to kind of tailor yourself to that, and you got to take care of your security levels. So in New York, you're not allowed to carry weapons as a law-abiding citizen. I might very quickly become, if the shit hits the fan, a conscientious objector to that law. Better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6, right? So take care of your security, try to blend in, try to be as quick and quiet as you possibly can, but carry adequate weaponry for your environment, Okay. So next, your camouflage, your city stealth versus your country camo type stuff. You've got to stop and analyze your area of operation. Okay, if you live in a small town like I do, anybody who's dressed like a city slicker is gonna stand out. So make sure that your camouflage matches your actual environment and the people around you. Don't start none, won't be none. Or if there is some, take care of your business quick. So next, your environmental concerns and availability of resources are huge when you're putting together a go bag. For instance, if you live where I do, my primary, secondary, and tertiary routes all have access to water the whole way. So do I need to have 4 Nalgene's full of water sitting in my pack just waiting? Or a full Camelback just waiting? No, I don't. I can get out of here, save the, if it's a gallon of water, that's what, 8.48 pounds. Save the 8.48 pounds in your pack, move faster, and when you get out of town, go down to the creek, get your water. Because as you saw on my War Belt video, I've always got a filter, a canteen cup, a source of fire, and iodine pills. All of the above. So you can be very, very quick, very quiet, and get the hell out of the way, fast. Okay? So consider your availability of resources. If I were in a situation where I was in the desert and water was a limited availability, you bet my bag would include stored water in said bag. Because it makes sense, right? The other thing further, here in Montana, you want to make sure you have adequate clothing, and you want to make sure that you have an adequate sleeping bag for your environment. So, for example, you'll see in my bugout bag, in my go bag, which is designed to work with my War Belt, you'll see that I carry a 20-degree sleeping bag, and I will do so until late June. A 20-degree sleeping bag, my Whoopee, and an Arcturus camouflaged heavy-duty survival blanket, Mylar on the inside, camouflaged on the outside. I will carry hats, gloves, things like that. So that should be included per your season and per your environment. The other thing is, choose your camouflage right. If you live where there's a bunch of deciduous trees, leaf-bearing trees, then woodland camouflage is just fine. If you live in the desert, though, and you happen to have woodland camouflage on, you are going to hate your life, both seconds of it, because you're going to stand out like a sore thumb. Okay? Here, you got to be a little bit different. My area covers some pine, some high desert, sage, red capstone, and decayed granite and things like that. I chose the cryptic Highlander pattern for a lot of my camouflage. Again, if you can't find a camouflage backpack, or if it's not appropriate for the first phase of your getaway, get a poncho or a camouflaged backpack cover, so that when you leave, your bright red, I blend in the city, or your, whatever, your book bag or whatever you're carrying to blend in, then you just wrap it in your poncho. Or if it's bad weather, you cover your whole body with it. And then you get to blend in once you're out of town. So you kind of got to consider those moments. Of course, you also have to consider cost. Everybody's on a budget, man. Even with Uncle Joey sending us a bunch of money, your $3 a day pittance. Everybody's on a budget, so you got to consider what you're going to do. My suggestions for your bug out bags, and generally also for backpacking, climbing, things like that, is there are certain things you shouldn't skimp on. I tend to be a knife person, so if it's a good quality blade, I'm on it. Don't skimp on your boots. Make sure they're broken in, because if you go to throw on a brand new set of boots for your first bug out, and it's a bug out drill where a bug out situation where you really got to get away from people, you're going to destroy your feet. So make sure your boots are broken in first. Okay? Don't skimp on boots. Don't skimp on your sleeping bag. My suggestion is to avoid down. Down has its advantages. It's light and all of that, but it does not insulate wet or dry. Modern synthetics will insulate you wet or dry. You may be clammy, but you'll be warm enough to make it, which is better in an emergency situation in my estimation, because if you don't have time to put up a tent or put up a shelter, and all you got to do is slip into a bivy bag and it's pouring rain, if your bag's a little bit damp and it's synthetic, you're good to go. If it's down, you might as well be wearing a wet bathrobe. A good friend of mine died on Mount Humboldt that way. He was wrapped up in 2 down sleeping bags, but it snowed for 28 hours. It was a heavy, wet spring snow. He was injured, couldn't go anywhere, and he wound up, dying of hypothermia and internal bleeding from a fall. So, synthetic weighs a little bit more, but it costs immensely less, and it will insulate you wet or dry. So that makes a difference big time. And if you get a 20-degree down sleeping bag, it may be $400. My 20-degree REI sleeping bag that I picked up at the garage sale during the spring when we got out of wintertime was $74. I can outfit my whole family for that same price, more or less, and it'll insulate wet or dry. So if your kid spills water on a camping trip, just a family camping trip, if they spill water on the bag, they're not going to have a cold, miserable night. They'll be wet, yeah, but they'll be warm enough. And you don't got to cancel a trip. So there you go, just for basic life strategy there. But if you're running for it and you've got a synthetic sleeping bag and you have to cross through a creek, it's not as much of a worry, and you don't have to carry the extra weight of a dry bag to keep your down dry. Some of those down bags are $400, $500, $600 depending on what the shell material is and things like that. So I would choose an appropriate temperature rating synthetic sleeping bag, and if it gets a little bit too cold, you have a layered system like I was talking about: your whoopee, your sleeping bag, and your survival blanket. Okay, those are things you really need to not skimp on. Okay, so boots, sleeping bag, knife, don't skimp on those items. Pack is kind of negotiable as long as it's good enough to hold up to the abuse you're going to put in on it. Make sure you have good quality wool socks and a spare set of them in your bag. I would suggest, like I said, those are the things that I don't skimp on: knives, boots, sleeping bags. Shelter and your backpack, there's good low-cost options out there, especially like at an REI garage sale or something like that. So those are the things I suggest you don't skimp on. Anything else? Geez, man, an old-fashioned canteen with a cup and a pouch like what I showed you on my war belt is roughly the same price as 2 Nalgene's, 2 regular old Nalgene bottles that you can't cook in. So keep those things in mind. Meet your own price point, but the things you shouldn't skimp on is your footwear, your knife, and your sleeping bag. Those are the things that are really going to, if those things go badly, they are really going to fuck you. And I mean clear into the ground. So there you go. There's my advice. And I will go ahead and I will do a breakdown of my bug out bag when I get home. And keep in mind, again, it's designed to work with my war belt. So my bug out bag alone is enough to get me through 48 hours of operability and get me home. Add my war belt, man, I got 72 plus right there. So you'll see how they work together. And the weight of those items, my bug out bag itself, I weighed it last night, was 23 pounds. That's all it was, 23 pounds. Now you add my war belt, and it's going to be about 40 total. But I can ruck 40 pounds, 6-8 miles, and show up in good enough shape to fight. If I push it and I make all 10, I'll fight. Just not quite as effectively. I'll be a little bit wobbly. So there you go. There's your considerations. I will show you the actual execution of my bug out bag and all of that when I get home tonight. Thanks, guys. See ya.